call this meeting to order. Would everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business is the approval of the February 20th minutes. Any discussion on those? Entertain a motion to approve those.
Second.
Motion to second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried.
I went to the other.
We have no public comment at this time, so we'll jump right into discussion items. With everyone's permission, I'd like to move the tax cap discussion and any other information needed by Meg, because she's on the phone with us in a conference call. So if we could move that to the top agenda. Is everybody okay with that for discussion? Okay, we'll start there. So first of all, is there any other information needed from Meg in preparation for the community budget forum presentation?
Did you say from Meg or for Meg?
For Meg.
Meg, I have a question.
Sure.
Is our the operating surplus or deficit, is that still the same as what you had projected previously?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't changed at this point.
Okay.
So with no
We
state,
won't know the final number until we actually close the books, which will be August at some point.
Right, but that's your best estimate at this point.
Yes.
And the budgeted expenses for next year, that's not changed.
Just very slightly. I did go through the BOCES budget, and some were a little higher, some were a little lower, so nothing significant has changed, correct. We still have not gotten final word on the health insurance. So we haven't heard, we haven't had any updates since the initial proposal of the 19%.
Okay.
I'm just really, I think it's important that we have a sense of where we're going for the meeting on the 19th with the community budget forum. I think it would be helpful to get a sense from the board how much, what they want to do with this. If we make the assumption that nothing changes, where would the board want to go with the tax rate as well as appropriated fund balance? And then we can present it based on here's where we are today. But if the governor comes through with additional state aid, we will either decrease the proposed tax rate or decrease appropriated fund balance or whatever direction we go.
so right now you're looking at guidance on what a comfortable tax cap is for the board.
Yeah, what do we want to present to the community on the 19th, barring anything unforeseen? I mean, I think we need to lay out there what it potentially could be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Meg, is I've been looking at it, and when I look at it in the past few years, I see that we clearly have a revenue problem. We have skyrocketing expenses, and our revenues are not following the same trend. So we're also struggling with reduced state aid from the state, and we don't know where that's going to go in the future. So I think that we have to look at increasing the tax levy, as we've discussed previously. I think that's pretty clear in the numbers. The question is really just how far do we go? So at this point, we were shorted basically $150,000 in state aid with the safe harmless removal.
Well, our initial projections in December and January was, what, 300 and some thousand, Meg, if they stayed?
Yeah, it was in that ballpark.
Because of the high cost aid was there.
No, that was just what they had projected if
Okay.
everything stayed the same as last year.
Okay.
So before they put the inflationary rate in and all that was safe harbor and all the metrics, that's what it would have been.
Yeah. So just knowing that 1% increase in the tax levy is $72,000. That for $150,000, it's roughly a 2% increase. So I think we, personally, I feel like we could go to the community and say, we've been shorted the state this amount, and this is at least the minimum that we need to make up that difference, which would be about 4.25%. Then if we get additional funding, later on, then we can look at reducing that. But in my opinion, that's the minimum. 4.25%. And even at that rate, we're still looking at issues next year.
See, I was down around 326, and the reason why is because we just don't know. The fund balance appropriation is always a difficult thing to track. We appropriated 1.4 million to close the gap last year, and of that, we're going to use that 500,000 of that. This could be the same thing could be this year. If we're lucky, we only use 500,000 of it this year, and your rate of decline on your fund balance isn't as sharp as what we had projected, but you could use it all as well. So we're always backed against the wall of not knowing how much of that appropriation is actually going to be utilized and how much is not. Until we close out at the end of the year, you don't really have that. You can have a sense as we get monthly statements, and you can kind of get an idea, and red flags can pop up, but I wanted to more like split the difference on the two. I think that I would definitely be in favor of going over the cap, but I think I would split the difference of the two and be down around the 3% or just over the 3%, just because we don't know, we just don't know how much is in that, going to be used in that fund balance. And that's just from sitting here for 7 years, I've always struggled with that a little bit as to how much is used. Some years we've had stimulus money where our budgeting exercise has done an excellent job of offsetting that. And other years we just started having to use it. Your trend shows that, last year we used 500,000. This year we're projected to use 500,000. Meg says we're on track for that. If you do that out 5 years, you're in the same issue without raising taxes. So kind of smooth that 5-year curve off and start being at that cap, at least at that cap or above, to try to smooth that thing out. That's where I look at it from, because I think it's too heavy on one end. I just think there's a balancing act there. But then the unknowns, if the school if it's not budgeted that way and we have unanticipated expenses, you're really going to have a budget issue. So we don't want to be mid-year having that crisis. So we can be smart about this and smooth that off. But that was just my thought process.
Yeah, I think even if we're looking at a continued $500,000 loss continuously, it's only going to be a matter of 1 year or 2 years if we go with such a low tax rate.
Yeah, and again,
but
we're going
we
to
have to
deplete the
go with
fund.
what our taxpayers can afford as well.
Yep.
So I think that's, and that's why I'm right at that 3 to 3.5%.
That's pretty much where I was too.
Because that's going to be a big hit. Either way, it's going to be a hit for our taxpayers, but to exceed that amount, I think that's going to be too much. And, we could say what we anticipate our expenditures are going to be, but if people aren't paying their taxes, we're not getting it anyways. So
the risk,
I'm 3.5, and I know that, a lot of the states are saying, always go out to your cap, always go out to your cap, you're leaving money on the table. Well, you got to take the taxpayers into consideration.
And that's almost a use it or lose it type attitude as well. That just continuously builds. I don't think it's on anybody's best interest to continuously build. You are going to increase expenses just through time. We get that. So you want to make sure, again, my personal opinion is just don't let the big spikes happen. If there's a way to have enough vision to make sure everything's on a smooth incline, your averages, you were showing like 7% increase versus the 3%, coming in expenses versus revenues. So it's going to outrun it. It's a matter of, how it does.
And the state put us in these situations.
Yeah,
The cap. You have to educate children. Well, it costs money to educate, and we've made significant cuts over the years, and we haven't filled a lot of those positions. And that list, you had asked for that list, right? Did you get that?
Yeah,
What's that?
well, Meg's working on it for the community forum.
So,
slide.
and that's something that we can show that, we've made made significant cuts over the years and tried to stay under the cap as the state suggests that we do, or at the cap. But this is a year that I don't think we can do that. But I don't feel comfortable going out to 4.
Yeah, the risk
I think
though is that next year it's gonna be a bigger jump. That's,
If
So-
that's, we're making an assumption that you're gonna use your whole entire,
no,
appropriation.
even with the $500,000 appropriation, it's,
we're.
And if the state doesn't
Yeah.
get back
and if
some of
expenses
what they-
continue to,
Yeah.
Right.
rise at the same rate that they have been, so.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, with 3.5, if, we go by the 77% value, we're looking at a potential increase. $71, and that was still on
155,000.
155,000 assessed value. So those that are less than that assessed value would see, a less of an increase, and those with more would see more, but that's just where I am. I'm at 3.5.
And it's taking your tax rate really from 1324 to 1371. That's the rate it would be changing it from the
Right.
2324 levy at $13.24. It changes to 13. At 3.5, it's $13.71. At 3%, it's $13.64. Increase in taxes would be $216,900 on a 3% increase. I think the projections were we were 300,000 plus or minus with the state aid being removed, a problem. So it's splitting the difference. You don't really catch up to the 300,000 mark until you're well over 4. So I just don't. You also run the risk when we have to do kind of like that super majority too when we go out exceeding the cap. So you want to balance all that. Amy, what do you think?
I agree. I think our taxpayers, there is a limit of what we can ask of them. And I think that we just need to balance out between the fund balance and the tax increase. And we just hope that the state comes to their senses and brings back some funding. So, but if we ask for too much, then we have run the risk of not getting our budget approved, and then we're gonna be in a whole nother situation that we don't wanna face.
Right.
So,
So, hearing 3.5?
Much right.
yeah, no more than 3.5.
Meg, did you catch that?
I did.
Okay.
And I think that if state aid numbers change, we really have to evaluate that again too.
Yes,
Yes.
yep,
Okay.
definitely.
Is there anything else you needed, Meg?
I don't think so. Thank you for accommodating me calling in.
No problem.
Thanks, Mike.
Enjoy the game. Can you run us numbers on the 3.5%, what that would use for our fund balance?
Yes,
Thank you.
okay. Thanks.
All right, enjoy your night.
Thank you.
Meg. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, it's never an easy topic. And honestly, with the state putting us in this situation, makes me shake my head a little bit because we've been very diligent for the last 7 years I'm aware of being very careful with budgeting.
Yep.
And to have a shock like that, all the other rural schools are gonna be the exact same situation, so I feel
Or even
bad for
worse.
everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of our neighboring schools are in a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, administratively, just to add this, we have clear direction on continuing to look for ways to reduce expenses using our hiring practices, completely be diligent on all expenses, shared services, and any potential for increased funding. We evaluate any grant opportunities or anything like that. So we will continue being diligent. And if you see any opportunities, send them our way. A lot of the funding opportunities that the governor is using right now for some press, I'm kind of disappointed in her with what she's doing, because when she's putting it out there, like the mental health clinic, $25,000 to start a mental health clinic. Are you kidding me? $25,000, right?
Right.
what, what is it gonna do for you? So then the impact is, again, on the district. The 25,000 is not even, that's not even 25% of what that cost would be for one individual, So that's unfortunate, but we're gonna continue to evaluate everything from energy to our insurances to any other practices, and we'll bring things, back to the board as we see them, and please keep it coming.
We've discussed in the past for additional revenue, not that it's gonna be a lot, but about logging the upper hill there.
Okay, so I did reach out to the forester, Rod Jones, and he looked at that, the last cut. Long story short, we're not ready for a cut yet. The piece over there could be potentially looked at for the soft wood there, that's on the opposite side, that the forested triangle over on just above Harvey Street.
Right.
That could be combined with the village cut that they're doing now to potentially move that wood out of there. That would be the only one ready. He said this was logged in 2012 and it's not ready yet. But he's gonna follow up and see if there are funding mechanisms to write that management plan, like I asked him, to give us an overall picture of when would a harvest be, what do you have standing there, what's your inventory of wood that's standing there. So he should be reaching out to you to do that when we had that discussion, so.
Okay.
I don't remember that being logged.
That's when I asked him, I saw him the other day.
I was on
Well,
the board then, but I don't
we found
remember.
some documentation that I shared with Graydon, that we shared with Graydon, that had Rod's detail and
Right,
when it was logged.
so he must have, okay.
And that
I
was
just don't remember
2012, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Because I had a conversation with him again about it, because I didn't know if that meant it still could be logged or not, so, but I don't know. I think there could be a more comprehensive look at that with another forestry plan to do a re-inventory and to see what's actually there. Because I
Right.
mean, it's obviously hasn't been re-inventoried since 2012 either, so. So we could see if there's funding out there to be able to do that. I think the Watershed Ag program pays for stuff like that through the forestry program, so we'll just have to
Okay.
see if we can get them to do that.
There was I think a federal grant announcement today for the,
Yeah, I've got it up to take a look at it. It's one of my, just one of my 5 tabs that I have open.
is that similar
Makes
to
Rick
the,
cringe.
similar to the state one, or? is
I
it
don't know.
different?
They just did the announcement. I really haven't had a chance to look at it. But the issue that I found with the federal, when they announce them, is they announce them, you look and they announced it, but either it's an RFP to provide the services they're looking at, or it's an announcement of the awards they already gave. And we never heard about the grant when it was open to begin with, so I'll look into this and see where we ended up being. It's, what I like is it said, to increase the number of mental health providers in schools. So that's a little different approach than what we've heard in the past of keeping, not supplanting, that kind of thing. The funding, supplementing, not supplanting, and that's been an issue with us, because if you already have them, then you can't access that funding. So we'll assess this, and we'll let you know if it's something that we're gonna go after. And honestly, we saw the success that we had with the grant writer. Meg and I have had discussions, and we're starting to look. There are some OC services around the state. There's also some professional grant writers that we've heard from. The one that we used for the grant that we had was a specific skill set related to that kind of programming. So we're still looking to see if we can't find a BOCE service somewhere or a grant service somewhere that we would have on hand to process some of these, because it's an art. It's an art.
And we have to be careful with the grants, because they come in and they're good for 1 year.
Correct.
And then you get that established, and then all of a sudden the taxpayers are funding it for future years, so.
Yeah. That's why I've been disappointed.
If we can get
with-
multiple year,
Exactly. The 25,000 to start a school-based,
Yeah.
okay, well, you immediately have a hit, and then you have ongoing hit. So
Right.
it's those types of grants, while they look good in the press and they look good on paper, they don't look good on paper when you look at the detail,
right.
type of thing. So it's very unfortunate, but we're gonna keep looking. Corey she is a hawk with these and sends everything my way constantly, so it's awesome. And we'll just keep diving into it. But a service, I think, is gonna be a key for us if we're gonna continue to write grants. I mean, that first mental health grant that Meg and I wrote, we lost, not hours, we lost days. And we just can't, and we didn't do it service, because we weren't grant writers. We did our best,
Mhm.
but you miss one methodology that they want in their grant writing, and it's not gonna be looked at. The
Right.
grant writer knows that aspect to get it past that first reviewer, your final reviewer. Especially if they've written for the federal government, they've written for the state. They both want different things and different processes, different formats, so we'll keep looking. But that's gonna be the key, right? We gotta increase revenue, decrease expenses somewhere. It's a simple equation that way. It gets very complex in a hurry once you go deeper, but same thing with any of our self-contained classrooms. As our populations adjust, if we have a self-contained classroom that can take 12 kids and they've got 5 kids in it, we'll talk to our neighbors with shared services to see if there's any need. Not necessarily behavior related, that's gonna tax on the school, but if it's a need that we can handle with our current instruction and staff, because that's a revenue source coming in. Helps the district, neighboring district, and it's a revenue source, so we'll continue to look at all those items.
Okay, so this information that we just provided to Meg will be used for our budget forum that's gonna be held following a regular business meeting on Tuesday, March 19th, and that's at 7 o'clock in this boardroom. So community is welcome to attend, ask any questions, see the presentation at that time. Backing up to the policy committee, we met earlier this week. There'll be a few policies that are presented for the first reading for March 19th, and we've also begun to work on the committee charters that Kevin brought up. We started with the policy committee like we talked about, and just started trying to iron that out. I think we agreed that once we get that, the first draft up and running with that, we're gonna look at it again, probably tailor it one more time, and then get it out to everybody, because that's kind of the format of how the other ones are gonna flow into, so.
Yeah, I thought we had good discussion about that charter. There's a lot of details in there, based on the NISBA, draft, the template they provided, so.
Thanks
I
for
think-
bringing that up too.
I think we'll end up in a good spot once we get through it.
And we did go back and forth on some of the things that are, how NISBA kind of does the overarching straight pen across the whole
Right.
state. So there's some things in there we had to really tweak to make it more ours and
Suitable for us.
suitable for us. So that worked out well, and I think that once we get that draft working, that should be something that can be duplicated. One of the things on there that we had, like one of the points we talked about is the charters had, term limits on time members could be on a certain committee, things like that. We kind of leaned away from that and said, if you have somebody in their expertise, why would you have an artificial way to get them off the committee? So we looked at more of a review. We looked at the attendance policy. If you miss X amount of days, we're gonna, we're like, nah. That was one of the recommendations kind of from NISBA. So we tailored some of that to say, we'll put a mechanism in place that reviews these annually at a organizational meeting.
Right.
And you can really put people in their strengths at that point in time in the committees, and then review if someone's not at committee work, is it, I doubt it's the timing of it, but it would be maybe they're not as passionate about it or something like that. So anyway, so that's kind of the gist of what Port Corey's working on now, so.
I'm
And we
about
did-
3/4 of the way through it.
Good.
And we did identify that there's a couple policies that will need to be revised as related to the charter, the committee policy and the policy review policy. Because we're gonna have to loop those charters into those, so.
Yep. So more to come on those. Next item is DCML BOCES Q&A. Election of BOCES board members is provided to us tonight. If we'd like to make a nomination, it needs to be done on the March 19th meeting. And if we want, Corey can prepare a resolution for the March 19th agenda that we can utilize, expiring this year. And I believe these 3 individuals are rerunning again. So this would potentially be our appointment unless we have somebody else we wanted to nominate, which we have full rights to do. Otherwise, we could have a pre-populated resolution for these 3 individuals that want to rerun that we could pass in support on the 19th. But we have the full right to nominate anybody we want. These are incumbents that have been on there, so.
If somebody doesn't have somebody else that they want to nominate, I would recommend doing a resolution for these 3. Of course, if somebody comes up with something,
Sure.
let Corey know.
Have we had somebody previously in the last?
It's been a little
10
while
years
now.
or-
Yeah, the last 10 years we have, but it's been a little while now. And it's usually when they have a vacancy that, we'll beat the bushes a little bit, say, try to garner more interest from our community aspect. I know they've reached out to us in years past to say, do you want to send somebody up? Does anybody have time to fulfill that responsibility?
Their format's a little bit different. It's one meeting a month. They rotate between the Norwich campus and the Harrell campus. I believe they do pay mileage for the board members. So they have the allocation. So it's right now, as I mentioned, the grading the other day, having Afton and Unitigo listed right on here. It's nice to see that we've got some individuals from small districts and from this side of the BOCES. A couple years ago, if you remember, you and I
Right.
talked, we would get a little worried because it was getting all very Shenango County-ish and larger districts, and so it was, we had some people getting off and retiring from some of the smaller districts, so it's nice to see a balance back. So Vanessa and John have been on there for quite a few years. Vanessa's the current board president.
So if we want, we can have if anybody has anybody nominate, obviously, let us know ahead of time for the next agenda setting meeting would be nice. If not, then I guess I would follow up with Rhonda's recommendation and make a resolution for these three to show our support. BOCES administrative budget and board member vote will take place during a special meeting scheduled on Tuesday, April 16th at 6 p.m. We also have a budget update that night. No other business will take place during that meeting, so it will be a short meeting with a budget update and just that vote. Do we want to have Dr. McDonald request a BOCES administrative budget presentation?
Our budget with the admin and capital, with the changes of our WADA, and then it was by the rate of weighted average daily attendance, and then it reshuffles your percentage of those budgets. With that, our amount actually went down from last year, so it's not a concern this year for us. But if we wanted to hear from Mr. Rulo or whoever he sent more on the administrative budget, we can surely request that. The service budgets actually came in very good this year too. Communication lacked, as we know. We kind of put him on the spot a little bit when he was here.
Right.
And that did,
And he
by the
followed
way,
up with that?
it did increase the speed of it. We had additional follow-up after that. It did move some things along. So thank you for assisting with that, with being willing to speak up. Sometimes, if we don't speak up, they don't know, and then we don't get a change. And it means a little bit more coming from the board. Sometimes it does from superintendent. But the budgets really probably the best they've looked in 3-4 years, as far as staying relatively flat or having reasonable increases. So that's a positive. And we have the budget books will be coming soon. We have them digital. The paper copies will be coming out some point here.
When they're printed.
So we could add, if you want, the digital budget book, we could add it or send it out in the Friday letter so you can see it. It has it in the capital and everything, so. Okay.
Kevin will have a spreadsheet for us by Monday. No pressure, hey, if you're gonna do them.
Done.
Yeah, and you'll see in the budget.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's impressive.
If you look at the budget
stop.
books when you get it, you'll see each page has a chart, and that's what the business officials look for, and we typically get those early, those exact documents, so it's easier to take the values for your district off of it and plug it in. And that's what they weren't giving us. That's what they were a month and a half behind on. We usually get those documents, and then it comes up later in the budget book overall. So just so that you know visually what we were pushing on, and it was on behalf of our business officials, because Meg ended up doing twice as much work, having to go into the database, a very interesting database. The WinCap is a very antiquated database. You'd go in and look up the service and look up and then to plug it in. It took 2 to 3 times as much time for her in a time period that she doesn't have 2 to 3 times the time to give. So again, appreciate the support.
Okay, at our last meeting, we discussed scheduling a curriculum committee meeting this spring, so potential dates are listed there. I think, Kevin, you had some conflicts, right?
Yeah,
On that?
sent to Corey already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
The April dates.
Yeah, I'm good with
Could be
the
considered.
April dates.
okay.
So if you just get back to me.
So which days? He has conflicts in April?
Nope.
No, he has conflicts in March.
I'm good for
So
the-
we're still looking at the
The
April
10th, the
dates.
15th, and the 16th.
10, 15, and 16.
Oh, okay, so I'll have to look again.
Yeah,
Because
the
I was,
16th.
I was good in March,
Okay.
so.
The 16th, we had that special meeting at 6, so if you guys thought you could do it before that, 4:30 gives you
Just
roughly,
one night out then.
yeah, it gives you probably an hour and 15 minutes for curriculum. I don't know how much is on the plate for curriculum, whether you get through an hour and 15, but just a thought to help you out. If you guys want to get back to Cory on that, would be perfect. Okay, that's it for discussion items. Okay, correspondence.
The DCMO BOCES annual meeting will take place on April 3rd at the Norwich Support Services Center, and that's at 6 o'clock.
Do we have any addendum items?
No, we do not.
Okay, under the consent agenda, we have declare surplus. One second. Inventory, request for unpaid leave of absence and athletic recommendations, emergency appointments. Any discussion on those individual items? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Under new business, first thing we have is donations. Accepting donations, $100 from Carl McGlynn to the Larry Says Scholarship in memory of Larry and Sally Regas. $25 from Ted Jameson to the Larry Says Scholarship in memory of Sally Regas. And $25 from Audrey Clark to Larry Says Scholarship in memory of Sally Regas. Would anyone recommend accepting those donations with sincere appreciation?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are accepted, thank you. And policy update. Kevin, would you like to bring us through that?
All right, so we have policy for second reading, 4321.12, timeout and physical restraint. There's an exhibit that goes along with that, 4321.12-E.
At this time, we have need a motion to approve and adopt after a second reading of those two policies.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Motion second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are adopted. And before we get to administrative remarks, before I turn this over to Dr. McDonald, I do want to acknowledge Mr. Verweer and say thank you very much for all the work you've done with spreadsheets, not just on the budget spreadsheet stuff, but when you've come on this board, every time we get any piece of data, it's nice to see it presented in multiple different ways, and that's really, you're going above and beyond by putting all that data together, and I know that everybody has expressed to me they appreciate that, so just want to say, acknowledge that and say thank you, we do appreciate that.
Good to hear.
And I will now turn it over to you.
So we've got the supervisory remarks. So we've got Brett and John, and we've got Rick here. So Rick, do you have anything you want to highlight here? Do you want me
I apologize for having it say February of 2023.
That's why you were shaking your head?
Yes. I don't normally make mistakes like that. And if I do, Cory catches them. So I do apologize. We are busy doing the workplace violence program. We met with the teachers union today. We met with WESPA Friday, I believe.
Yep, last week.
And the bus garage representation Monday morning. So they have the, not plans, but our risk factors and questionnaires, and they're going through them currently. Hopefully we'll have them back by the end of the week or early next week, and then we'll move to the next phase. So we're right on schedule.
Yep. So as this develops, goes through this piece of it, health safety came down, worked with Rick. We have a template that's a statewide template that they're utilizing. especially across the BOCES. So it was very helpful. And I think you spent, 3 hours with them walking the complex, and identified, a few different things that are helpful in classrooms and various things. And now we're going through by state reg, by law, actually by labor law, we have to, each bargaining unit has to have an opportunity to look at what the risk factors were identified in each location, and the mitigations that are with it, and give their feedback. So we've done that, giving it to, literally meeting with them, handing it to them and saying, please mark it up, whatever your thoughts are. This is a practice that as much as I've said before, the timing of it makes it very difficult this time of year. However, the practice of it for us, safety-minded, as this district is, we welcome it. And if we find a few things, a few areas that we can even improve our practice, that's great. Because that's always been the focus and continues to be. And we've identified a few things already. And once it comes back, we'll take it back to the district committee and go through it with the full safety committee to then write the document and the plan. These different risk assessment pages, as far as locations, actually are presented to the staff in the entire buildings with their training. We're doing it in 2 sections. We're doing the overall training, which Health Safety at BOCES is sending down to us. It's the same template training that New York State requires. And we're doing that. We're actually going to have majority of it done by March 15th. It's due by May 4th. We'll have majority of that done, and then we'll have a secondary of just that one page once that page is completed. Because not only are we doing it for the large groups, we're going to some individual sections. So like the business office and the district office, they don't fall in a group. We're going to that group and we're sitting down, we're gonna go through risk factors and go through all the opportunity. We did the same thing out here. That was the first place we went, was the reception area, and we did it in the different offices. So we're trying to really truly make this an exercise of safety development, rather than a mandate that we're just trying to check a box on. We're gonna really try to see if we have any change.
Well, to get that much feedback from all those different groups,
Yep.
Is gonna
Great
be
opportunity.
successful in itself, especially like the bus drivers, the aides, and, the
Yep.
ones that are, a lot of time hands-on.
Exactly, and a lot of times they don't have that direct communication.
Right.
They just kind of get what is given all, and they have specific detail. You think of bus drivers, away trips and various things, and bus stops, they've got different risk factors than, say, classroom teachers. So it's interesting that way. So Rick's been taking the lead on that. I appreciate that, Rick, and it's been going very well. At the end of the day, we also will have an appendix to the safety plan that we have to write up. That will be coming to the board. It'll be coming to the board by May. No, March, by the end of this month, right? So next meeting probably, right? We got work to do. Be the next meeting or the first meeting in April, because as long as we're processing it, we can push it to April.
As soon as possible, sir.
Yes, so we'll bring that forward, and then after that, so it'll be approved out of cycle, and then it'll be approved again annually in August as an appendix to the safety plan that we always do our public comment period and then approve. It'll be part of that. So we'll turn that around to get us back in cycle with that. And then we have annual training. This is one of the workplace violence. This is another mandate that has to be done within 30 days of hire annually, or 30 days of hire. So that's 3. They have to be within 30 days of hire. So it's making us look at our onboarding practice. So, these things can drive good systems, and systems that we know we need to improve on in some of those cases. So we're using it to the best of our, to our best interest.
So just so I understand, all the assessment, everything that you described is wrapped up in an appendix to our existing safety plan?
Will
Is
be,
it?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, it'll be the risk factors as well, along as the whole plan. So we have a template of a plan that we have to develop, and then we have the risk assessment that's also attached to it.
Okay.
Now, what I don't know is whether or not the board has to go. I don't think the board has to go through the training. I just have to make sure I keep you well informed. So, lucky you, it's an hour and a half long. It's 55 slides. So, actually, I'm surprised you're not getting it at work, because it's New York State law now. So you may be still getting it in some format.
Pretty sure that I am.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's on my list.
And then just one more question. We have, is there a board member on the safety committee?
Yeah, Mr. Bedine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I had a question on the O and M.
Yep.
Construction to start a new records room storage.
Yeah, that's what we talked about with that grant, where we got the records grant to bring the room up. And we're in the cage area and the building mechanics area. We're moving, we're basically giving the O and M the downstairs area, and we're taking a back section of the upstairs area. And the grant funded the building of closing in of a new room in that area. That's
Like
going in.
fireproof room or?
Yeah, fireproof room and an actual records, one of the,
High-density mobile shelving unit.
thank you,
Okay,
Cory. So it's going to be really good. We're also gonna have a computer in there. We're gonna have checkout, check-ins. We're gonna make sure that the key set is going to be very secluded, where we're really securing this area up. But yeah, it's gonna have fire retention system. It's gonna have the whole works. So this was a goal of Cory's, that we had an opportunity, and she had an opportunity to write a grant, and she put in the time and cranked on it, and we got it. That was that $50,000 records grant. So now Brett and Millard are doing the work and putting the room together, and we'll have it in place,
Has to be in place before June 30th.
right? And it's coming to delivery, in April?
April.
Sometime in April. So once we get it down, we'll let you know.
I
If
have
you
to
wanna check it
laugh
out.
because when I was here and we used to have to go into the basement,
Mhm.
I thought it was amazing when our former business manager, Catherine Grossman, approved purchasing a cart, so I didn't have to carry the boxes up
Yes.
anymore. I was like, oh, wow.
Well,
So now the whole room will be up here.
soon
Good.
after I got here, we had a mini flood from a plugged dehumidifier that has to run down there. And it's not the first time it's happened. We actually almost had some records damaged. And that kind of said, okay, we knew that was a goal. We actually already had mapped out the whiteboard. Said, oh, well, I think we got to kick it in
Well, it
gear.
didn't make sense to me when the ice machine went down there, but
Yeah, well, that's up here now.
that was kind of crazy.
Yep.
We need ice. Oh, run to the basement. And then the other thing, I just wanted to comment on that. I like to see that they're reinstalling the tables back into the greenhouses and
Mhm.
they're gonna be getting ready.
Yeah, Kylie
That's
is, her focus is doing the hydroponics elsewhere and using the greenhouse for the greenhouse
Greenhouse,
development
yeah.
process. So she's using the other space for the hydroponics piece, where the hydroponics ended up kind of dominating the greenhouse.
Yep.
So just a different approach and stuff of that nature. So they're working on that. Exciting times, and one of the things that we're going to do is, when we get into the spring here, I want to pull together Beth Holland and Connie Latham and Kylie, and have an article, maybe invite the Daily Star, and have an article regarding what we currently are doing regarding garden to a table, and what we're doing for cafeterias, because we're growing a lot of greens,
Yeah.
and the kids are doing it, and the ag club at Townsend, it's really grown. and
That has
everything,
grown
so
so much.
we
That is really
we need to
good.
highlight
Right.
that great stuff that we're doing, and it needs to be more than just a website post, in my opinion. So we've got that on the docket. I wanted to get it done last year, but we got this fall, but we got away from it, so we're gonna try to get it this spring. So highlight some of our
Mhm.
good work that's going on. Okay, anything else for the three of them? No? Okay, so I had a couple things listed here. One, I need some consensus on, if I could. Sydney has approached us. They have a construction project going on and have no place to practice and play their tennis. So they've asked if we would be willing to allow them to use tennis court. So I tasked Adam with working with them and some, okay, well, we have issues with fields too. What can we do here as an agreement, shared services? So that's what's there as a document. We tend to have issues in the spring at times, as well as we have in the past, and they have helped us out with a neutral site at different times at Sydney. And this just kind of solidifies that they'll be more open to both sports seasons as we have, as we have difficulty. They've got the turf, we've got mud in the spring and the beginning, and this will help us get things started quicker.
Maybe it'll spark more
So,
interest in art students,
right,
tennis.
yeah, who knows? So we've allowed people to do it like for one event, but given the fact that this is a full season, I wanted to bring it to the board, make sure you have a consensus before I move forward with getting a signature between Mr. Bullock and myself. So
Is there bleachers over there already? Or that's
we have a
moving?
set that we
Can
move
move
over.
over.
Yeah. So that's why it's saying May, because we'll do its best to provide spectator bleachers, because if we're using our bleachers somewhere else, and we've got contests, we're not taking away from our folks and putting over there.
Mhm.
But we typically can work it out, so.
There's no unanticipated additional costs with this at all, or additional maintenance or anything?
No, we just through COVID with the pandemic funding, we just resprayed and put it up to snuff. Our folks, kids can still use it during the day for phys ed, for pickleball or for tennis. So, and the pickleball nets move right off the courts. So it won't affect us at all. The only thing it may affect is if any of our community members happen to want to go at that time from 3 to 5 or on a day when there's a match, that could affect that. But we don't get a lot of heavy use typically during the week, sometimes toward the evening. So I don't think it'll affect it, but mainly in the weekend, there'll be a few teams or a few
If they're
folks out.
having a construction project, would they have portable bleachers that they could possibly bring over while they're
Yeah, we'll look
utilizing
at it. If we have an issue, we've been able to move a set, I just don't know which set it was. We've been able to move a set, like when they did sectionals, we were able to move a set over. It's still not affect ours, but
Okay.
if there is an issue, I'm sure they would. They'll do whatever they need to do, for sure.
No, I don't see any problem with it. Anybody else?
No, I don't.
Okay, nice relationship to keep forming.
No, I'm fine with it, just communicating to the community that may use it. I don't know if there's a way to just get that word out there, because it's one of
I
those
don't
things.
think the tennis people we don't do, they just kind of come up and use it, so we don't
Yeah,
really
we-
know who it would
Maybe we
be.
could put a sign
Just let
on,
her
you
know.
know,
Yeah,
with a starting date
Right.
as when,
because they're not
It will be
signing it out very
unavailable.
officially or
Correct,
anything like
yeah,
that. It's just- Yeah, but
So we'll get some, I'll have them develop a sign and laminate it, we'll put it out there on the fencing, for
Sounds
temporary
good.
fencing. Okay, thank you for that. And, as we know, depending on what happens in March, and in early April, we're going to have, these five emergency days that we have to get back by contract. We hold one, as I have every year since I've been here, hold one right to the bitter end. I learned my lesson, and when I was in Hancock, we lost the first day of school and lost the last day of school. It never happened in my entire career, happened in the same year, and boy, did that cause an issue in the last day of school. We had our celebrations and everything going on, and then boom, nothing, and boy, what a mess. But we figured, so we hold it to the last day of school. That also allows us to get the K through 6 out a day earlier, where high school 7 through 12 has been out for Regents Week and only as needed. And then the other dates are listed there, that's the intention. I just wanted to, inform you tonight, and a letter will be going out to parents to this effect in the next few days as we process it, so.
We're not through March yet.
No, we are not. And the letter will indicate that they'll come back if needed. And we'll start, of course, with the farther dates and work our way, not the June date, but the May date. So, okay? That's all I've got.
Okay, there's no need for exec session tonight?
No, there is not. Not on my end.
So I entertain a motion to adjourn.
motion?
second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Did everybody get one of these?